What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Nash. Welcome back to another Hoopers update video. Today we're talking James Harden and the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors have been reported to have exploratory conversations with the Houston Rockets regarding James Harden. Now, James Harden did not place the Toronto Raptors as one of the teams he wanted to be traded to when telling the Houston Rockets that he wanted to go to a different team. He had teams like Brooklyn Nets, the Philadelphia 76ers. He had those teams on there and maybe some other ones, but not the Raptors. The Raptors were a team that came into discussion afterwards when Houston was unable to get Harden onto one of the teams that he wanted to. Now, the situation might sound kind of familiar to what happened with Kawhi Leonard back in the 2018 season. Kawhi Leonard it didn't seem like he wanted to go to the Raptors. He wanted to probably go to LA, where he currently is, but the Spurs decided to trade him to the Toronto Raptors. And we see how successful they were together. They were able to get the first championship for Toronto ever. So seeing this situation, it may seem like something the Raptors should definitely do. Trade for that superstar level talent, get him onto the existing Raptors team, which was very good last season. They had the second best record overall in the entire NBA, only behind the Milwaukee Bucks. And let's see how far they go together. Maybe they can pull out another championship. You never know. But when looking at this trade, there's both pros and cons that we can consider. The pros would be the above mentioned, of course. You're adding James Harden. He's an amazing player, one of the best in the league. And you're adding him to an already successful team. The Raptors, having that void in their team from when they were championships that was left by Kawhi Leonard, you could probably definitely tell that was there when they were playing the Boston Celtics, who eliminated them in last year's playoffs. They weren't able to take control of that series. So having that superstar level player, if they had Kawhi Leonard, they did take the Boston Celtics to 7 games. Maybe they could have pulled out that win if they had Kawhi on the team. But all of that is just speculation. When we take into account adding players to teams, we have to take into account how they'll fit into that different culture. We can take a look from an example last season where we had Jimmy Butler, who fit in very well and seemed extremely happy on the Miami Heat. And maybe that enjoyment that he had with playing with these new teammates translated into the game of basketball. He really seemed to fit into that culture, and it led to them having a lot of success together, making it all the way to the finals. But you take that same player of Jimmy Butler, and we see how he was in the year just prior, in the 2018-19 season on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And yes, he did elevate that team, but it was clear that he did not fit into the culture of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Jimmy Butler was looking for a different type of environment. So the question is, how well would Harden fit into the Raptors culture? Well, we see what Kyle Lowry, who is essentially the face of the Raptors and has been a face of the Raptors for a long period of time now. He's the heart and soul of the team. He says that, "I want us to be a defensive team where every single possession, every single night, the team who's coming in knows that it's going to be a slug-it-out game." So that defensive identity is something that the Raptors strive for and they try to achieve. This defensive identity isn't something that James Harden is known for. He's often clowned for not being that good on defense. That said, if we look at the stat line of who was the steals leader in the 2019-2020 season, lo and behold, it's James Harden of all people. So even though he's been clowned on for not having that defensive identity, we see here that, steals are part of defense, and he had 125 steals, ranking him number 1 in the whole NBA last season. So that we can't say 100% that James Harden would be adverse to incorporating even more defense into his game to the level that the Raptors are striving for. The next thing we can look at in terms of the Raptors culture is that when you see them play, they have that good team ball thing going where there's unselfish plays and they have a good amount of people scoring, and it's not just when we look at last season, it wasn't just one person scoring every single night. The score was often distributed among multiple different players. So a lot of this is depending on how James Harden will adapt into the Raptors. Then we take into account what the Raptors will be losing if they sign James Harden. James Harden is not going to be cheap, of course. And the package that makes sense to me that they would probably want to put together might look something like signing or trading Pascal Siakam and Norman Powell. Trading these two players would make the salaries close to match up, and you can throw in a first round pick or a second round pick or something like that for the Houston Rockets. So then the question is, do the Toronto Raptors want to give up Pascal Siakam? The Houston Rockets are probably looking for that young asset with a lot of potential, somebody maybe like Pascal Siakam. And Siakam was really great in the 2018-19 season. He helped our team win that NBA championship that they had never won before. He was a part of that team, and he was a very important piece to that team. Well, what about what happened last season? Pascal Siakam was not able to perform at the level they needed him to in order to win the Boston Celtics series. So do the Raptors want to give up a player that they've seen perform at such a high level before? If Siakam was playing at that level that he was at before when the bubble happened, then a lot of people would probably say no. So ultimately, what it boils down to is, would the Raptors rather have James Harden and take that risk on him of how he'll fit into the culture and different things like that? Will they be able to all get along with each other and be able to play that Raptors basketball that Kyle Lowry wanted them to play, and that who we've been accustomed to see now, that team ball, that defensive ball? Do they want to do that and trade away Pascal Siakam and also some of the depth that they have? Or do they want to take a risk on keeping Pascal Siakam? So to me, if we take into account how good Siakam was last season, disregarding what happened in the NBA bubble, or even including that, if we take a look at his stats across the board, he had a lot of career highs. He had a career high in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. If I was making this trade, I would maybe say that the Raptors should keep Siakam. They've seen how well he can play, and if he can play at that level, not only at that level again, but continue to develop as a leader and as a player, and help them perform not only in the regular season but also in the playoffs, then the Raptors can be a continuously contending team and maybe even once again contend for a championship, if not even this season. Let us know what you guys think. This has been Hooper's Update. If you guys haven't already, make sure to dunk on that like button and hit subscribe. It helps support our channel, and hopefully catch you guys next time.